Hello and welcome to Inkpot, and this is our painting horror series number 2. This time we're painting the Wendigo. The spirit of a Wendigo possessing a guy. So this is my initial kind of drawing here of my idea for it. Now I'm very inspired this time by the work of Stefan Coyd. Is it Coydle? He does a lot of these large kind of backdrops with kind of like, not all the time, but he has done ones of these like big fields and then spooky stuff in there. I mainly paint figures myself, so it's something I need to work on, is my ability to paint like scenery. So I figured I might as well try that with this series. So I started off with kind of like a thumbnail kind of sketch, which was very loose and just gave me kind of a little bit of the idea of what I was going for. And then I came up with this. Now, I find when you're doing stuff more along this line, that getting the sorry, I'm just opening up a file here. Getting the balance is very difficult to do. Sorry, I just am putting some reference on my second monitor here, just for to help me as I go along here. Alright, so yeah, so I am still worried that there is a little too much negative space up here, but we'll see what I can do about that later. I might in the foreground just put some like indication that there's branches or something in the foreground here as well. But I have a tendency to overload stuff like that, and then it takes away from the emptiness of the scene. So that's something I'm also going to be trying to work on with this one. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of lower the opacity on that, and I'm going to come up with a color. That's why I was pulling up my my reference here, and it's just I took 2 photos of a field and of mountains, and I kind of just spliced them together, and that's what I used to kind of figure this out. And I'm just kind of looking at the colors and tones in there. So this is a winter scene, so there's going to be a lot of like off-white going on in here. Just gonna fill that section up with the color. Now, this is a larger canvas than I have been using, so my computer's chugging a little bit on it. It's working a little bit slower than usual, but alright, now I'm just gonna start putting in some kind of temporary colors here for figures, since that's what I do best. Maybe I'll start with that. I think I'm gonna go with this kind of like blue for the jacket. And I got this dull blue color going. Now, when you look up a lot of what painters artwork of like people from the fur trade and stuff, era of history, you tend to see people just putting everybody in like in leather, but in the winter in Canada, they're probably using more like a wool jackets and stuff, and some furs probably as well. So I came up with this kind of jacket. Seemed appropriate enough. I don't know if just having this little spot of color is gonna overshadow anything, but we'll see. Hopefully not. Basically, I'm putting in the flat colors first. Now, my last painting that I did, you'll notice that I did it a little bit different. In that one, I did kind of all my flats kind of after. Well, not after. I did basically one full. I filled everything with one kind of shadow color, and then I worked up from that. So they all had the same base shadow color. Could have done this one that way too. I'm just going to show you kind of another way I go about it. So I can always make changes to the shadow color with either like a multiply layer or even just in the color balance tool. You can always just kind of select the shade or the shadow color and make any changes. I'm gonna change my brush here. Probably wasn't the best brush to use. You want a fairly hard edged brush to be doing a lot of this stuff. Yeah, so basically I had this guy running away here from this guy that's been possessed by spirit of the Wendigo. So here you see a guy, he's like standing there basically in his underwear there. He's got an arm in one hand and an axe in the other, and back here you can see the mutilated body of his victim. Then here I think I'm putting it, I thought maybe I'll just put in kind of the spirit of the Wendigo, kind of helping him along his way here. Kind of more literal look at what kind of taken over him. I was debating on just making like a large creature that was attacking him. But I decided against that. Just trying to find a good kind of tanned hide kind of look here for the mitts and stuff. And I'll probably extend into his little belt here too. Of this paint horror series, I'm kind of going back to kind of the roots of what I remember liking about doing artwork. Because I pretty much remember mostly, I used to, one Halloween, my mom and we drew pictures to put up on our windows for Halloween. She's an artist as well. And that really takes me back to kind of drawing these kind of more scary topics. Kind of more my roots almost. I was always very into horror movies, I still am. And I have an old YouTube channel where actually I have a horror movie I directed on there. Like a horror short, I think it's like 25 minutes long. Lately I've been kind of grappling with myself on so I do kind of want to do, like a couple of years ago I tried to do a comic book. I did one issue and I didn't get a very good response or much response from it, so I kind of just gave up. But I'm thinking lately that I would like to do something along those lines again. Not sure what I would do. I would go again towards, that one was a Western, which is a genre in comics that's probably not that popular. But at least not in North America. But oh well. It's a story that I kind of had in my head for a while. That's why I wanted to do it, but I'm just going in. Now, this might seem odd with this kind of like purpley tone. That's a little too saturated. And desaturate that a bit. No, maybe I'll go with a warmer tone for now. It's a nice thing about doing like these in flats that you can always just go and select the color and change it. Now I assume that like Stefan Coidel probably works with it in grayscale and then colors it just from the look of his stuff, I would assume. I've never really worked that way, so I'm kind of just going to be kind of doing this in the way I regularly do it. I might try something at some point. In that method, I know it's a very popular method of working. It just seems like you do all this work to get all this tone right, and then you go in and color it, and then you're tends to be like not as simple as just doing a color layer and leaving it at that. If it was that simple, I think I would be more inclined to use it, but if you can, like, everything that's done that way has a certain look to it. I believe that it's pretty apparent that when you look at it, you can kind of figure out the way that was done, and it tends to be very desaturated, all the colors, which is fine, but sometimes you want I like my colors to be a little bit more poppy than that. Pop out a little bit more. So you'll see it's pretty evident when you see my work that I like working with fairly bright colors. Now, I'm tempted to flat all that out, but I think for this episode, I'm just going to work mostly on him, see how far I can get on him. I'm just going to take that sketch layer and really remove as much of that as I can for right now while I'm working on it, but I need enough there. Make sure my selection layer is on pick from this layer only. And, oh. Sorry, just trying to figure out, I was drawing on the wrong layer there, so I'm just trying to, there we go. Turn this one back on. Just make sure that I'm not drawing over my sketch layer too much there. Just in case if there's something I need to reference later on it that I covered over. I'm just gonna I'm thinking that the light's gonna be pretty much coming from above here. It'll be like midday, but because it's so overcast, it's gonna be probably pretty soft, the light, and you're probably gonna get light. You're probably gonna see more of the, when it's overcast like that, it's like a big diffuser of the light, so you get really soft shadows, and it tends to fill out more of the areas that would be in shadow. So your lighting isn't as, direction and stuff isn't quite as noticeable. It's more like, I mean, you tend to not get as sharp highlights and not as sharp shadows, I guess. But also you don't get big sections that are in shadow as well. So it's always good to take like a photography course or something. If you are an illustrator or painter or something along those lines, it's just going to help with kind of figuring out those kind of things. Just soften up, blend some of those edges. Also helps with having better terminology to describe this stuff. So I don't know what level people watching this are at, so try to keep it pretty general. So I'll use terms that are not quite as technical sometimes. I'm also tempted almost to backlight this guy a little bit, but I'm just kind of getting right now in all of the where there are going to be a little bit more dark shadows in there, just as a base. Yeah, I think I am gonna go a little bit more into that backlit kind of look too to this guy. That just means that kind of in his center core here, he should actually be in shadow. Usually though, when I work that way, I work the opposite from like really dark to really light. But depends on the material. Like this is going to be a softer material that the clothing is. If I was doing like leather or something, then it would be almost like from a black to almost like a pure white. This is going to be going up over the shoulder still. At this stage, it's not going to really be looking all that great. Instead, I'm kind of going the opposite of the way I had drawn it. So my actual sketch lines here, if I bring those up like that, I'm actually keeping in highlight instead. Just get that backlit effect a little bit more. And in here, we will probably go darker as well. Right. I'm still thinking this guy might be a little too saturated, but we'll see. I just use this gouache blender to kind of push the color around like a dry brush on wet paint, kind of pushing the highlights into where I want the highlights to be, pushing the dark colors where I want those to be. Grab a different brush here. I really do like this oil 3 brush. It's kind of my main kind of brush here. Kind of a different technique than what I was using with the blender. I just wasn't really liking quite how smooth that was looking. And then this allows me to kind of go in and darken, lighten certain areas too, instead of just transitioning from the one color to the other color. This gives me a little bit more character in the strokes being used. They don't all look the same. We're getting kind of a nice kind of shape going on there for the general kind of shading and everything that we're going to be doing for that coat. Grabbing that highlight color to bring in kind of more of that back in there. Yeah, didn't like that, so I'm just bring that back a little bit. I'm wondering if I have that too saturated still, but we'll do something about that if I need to later. I am just gonna grab a little bit, make sure this is a darker tone. Yeah, light darker tone, just because I want to, you know what, that's a little too saturated too. Try that. Dark enough. There we go. Just add it back in some of the darker shadows. Add a little bit more depth. A little bit bigger brush. I could have actually went in with a little bit of a stronger, sharper tool with that. Just doing that now in some spots. Just to bring out kind of some of the more detail in that piece and clothing, and make sure that it's not all too soft and becomes kind of less three-dimensional when you, it's a little bit too light there. harder brush again. Sometimes I'll use the term stronger. It just means same thing. I mean, generally, I mean hard brush. So hard brush versus soft. Well, I don't know. That's not good at representation. Let's do this one. That's a soft brush. So you got hard edges or soft edges. Oops. Didn't realize I was still on that other brush. Back. Now this is kind of different. It's got soft edges, but, well, hard edge on one side, but soft kind of tips. Probably you're closest to kind of your paint brushes that you're used to using. You work with real paint. And I kind of just like the look of them. And the way that I feel like I can get a very nice, almost like working with pencil kind of gradation to them. And they're easy to work back and forth and not get too soft of an edge where your details start going away. To desaturate. Bring in more of a highlight edge here. You want a crease to look strong. Best way to do it is put a fairly bright highlight alongside of a shadow, a sharp shadow. A lot of people just try to put in a sharp shadow. It doesn't really work as good as just adding a highlight by a shadow. Like this here, having a high highlight there beside the dark, by the dark there, like really changes that to being a way sharper. Looks a lot thinner, the material, right? You want like a sharp crease kind of thing going. Now I did just kind of add a little highlight ridge in there. Reason being is your clothing should probably have kind of like a sewed line there. Not exactly sure though if how the sewing went on those old wool coats. I'll have to look at some more reference probably when I go more through like the detailed stages of this one. Kind of figure that stuff out. But I'm not trying to be entirely historically accurate, just in the ballpark, where it's not glaring. Now also you'll see in my original sketch here of like the Wendigo creature here. I tried to go off more of like actual descriptions from Algonquin peoples of what it would look like, instead of the kind of North American thing that's kind of crept up where he always has antlers and horns, and as far as I know that was never any kind of depictions or descriptions of a Wendigo looking like that from the actual Algonquin legends. I don't know where that kind of characterization came from, but it seems to be like the most prevalent one. Which is kind of sad because he's creepy enough as is. I guess they want him to look more unique from than, say, like a tall, skinny zombie. He's supposed to just be like a really gaunt, yellow-skinned creature. Some depictions say he's got kind of like an icy layer of like ice on him. So I tried to depict that a little bit in the sketch here. Just a little bit. I'll probably have to work on kind of like how I'm going to add that frost kind of layer on him. And also he usually doesn't have full 5 fingers too, as in a lot of the legends, so trying to keep it somewhat accurate to the legend there, but the fact that he is kind of just possessing this dude isn't exactly the legend though either, where he himself as a creature will kind of kill and eat people. But I wanted to do something a little different because I think we've seen a lot of depictions now of him being this horned, antlered kind of creature. I just wanted to get away from that. I still think that I'm probably overly saturated with that blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to here, tonal correction, hue saturation, and this is just affecting that layer. I'm just going to bring the saturation down quite a bit. As you can see, we can go quite a bit of ways back down. Plus with the overcast kind of lighting, kind of make more sense. So that's what I had. That's why I'm turning it to. Alright. I'll probably do more of the coat there later, but I'm just gonna keep on moving on here. Working on this kind of stuff. I kind of got him with somewhat of a scarf here. I'm just gonna grab that kind of lighter color there. That highlight a little bit brighter. Just trying to get that kind of outlined look kind of gone from that. Oh, wrong brush. Alright. It's okay. Like I said, I'll have to go in more with a detail layer and adding more detail, more highlight, and everything to the coat and stuff as I go. I'm just gonna grab that same kind of shadow layer. Same color. I'm just gonna put in a little bit of those shapes there. That. Grab a little bigger brush. Grab that color. Grab that kind of color I just mixed by going lightly over that. And start filling out the area here. Grabbing that darker tone again. I'm trying to just do kind of like a textured look here. With my strokes. Now also he's surrounded by snow, so you probably would get a little bit of uplighting of kind of like a bounce light coming off the snow. We'll do that more in the final stage. Kind of put like a little rim light along the edges of some of those clothes there. If you watched any of my other streams, you'll notice that's something I almost always like to do is really like a nice strong edge light. Edge highlight. Probably even lighter, more desaturated tone. Well, for now, that's okay. Probably need a lot more work, but and then I'm just gonna refine the shape of that kind of blobby looking thing I have there with my eraser tool. Go on that, get that shape closer to what we need it to be. For now. I'm debating on if I want kind of the thumb poking through there or not. Maybe we do. I'm just grabbing this darker color in. Is where this strap on this leather pouch thing that he's got. Highlight in there again. I might go over those with a little bit of like an orange tone on a different layer on like a multiply setting, just to kind of make that a little bit little bit more variation between the tones of the tanned hides here, just so they're all not the same. I don't really have any idea of what I'm going to be doing here with this bag, detail-wise. All of the bags that I've seen like this on these guys, it's so vague, like in the photos of how they're actually designed and how they work. It's hard to kind of tell. They're more like a traditional kind of like purse-like idea, or what kind of details should be in them. They're not very detailed. I guess that's my point, is that they're not very detailed, so it's a little bit tougher to kind of figure out how to depict it. To make it look like a real thing, but you don't want, but if they really do look a little bit vague, you don't want it to be too much of a departure of what they're really like, or were really like. I also don't want it to be glaring, that it's not as rendered out as as other stuff in the picture. Highlight tone. I guess something like that for now. Just making sure that there's kind of like a cast shadow there a little bit from the arm. Cool. I think so far this guy's looking pretty good. What's next? Maybe I'll do the pants. Maybe I'll do all the clothing kind of first and then do the face. Might leave the face for the next episode. So I'll probably just finish up the pants and possibly the moccasins or mucklucks kind of that he's wearing down here. Just turning back on my sketch layer there. Grab that kind of dark color again. I'm just gonna go in there, go light, and then use that light tone to kind of get my basic kind of painting tones in there. I do often really like backlighting stuff. I find does really have a nice kind of look to it, and it definitely does actually speed up my paintings by just giving a little bit of a backlight. It's not my motivation for doing it, though. The speeding up factor. It's more just really to do like the look I get with it. Depending on the scene. Some scenes it doesn't make sense. Like the last piece I did, I had pretty much entirely side lighting and stuff. That was the first painting series of I Paint Horror, which if you are enjoying this, you should definitely check out. I also put up a time lapse of that one, so if you want to just get a quick kind of look at it and feel for what I did with it, you can definitely check it out that way. Now, unfortunately, there are some people that can use like certain digital brushes and stuff to really speed up their work. I'm not one of those people. I don't know those. I just don't know. Don't know those tricks, and when I use them, they just don't look as good. And I feel better in my own process here. Feel like I get a better result. And you'll find some techniques will work for you really good, some other ones won't. That's why there's so many different ways of painting and drawing and stuff. Everybody kind of finds their own way and what techniques work for them and which ones don't. Just like people, like I said, who paint in grayscale and then they color it. Some people are just excellent at that. Myself, every time I do it, it just seems really too desaturated for my style and just I'm just not as big a fan of it. I'm a fan of it in other people's work, but not my own. But some people like to do detailed underpaintings, and other people don't like to do any underpainting. It's just what kind of works best for you. I know a lot of people like to work in oils, and they'll kind of just take their shadow tone, they'll take their kind of mid-tone, and then just kind of do kind of what I was doing here, and then just blend all of that together, and they'll get a real nice result. And then they'll go in with more of a textured highlight to kind of indicate the pores of the skin and stuff, and they get really realistic, like photorealistic paintings in the end. For me, the final step never works as good in that kind of way. I always end up having to just like when I try to do the grayscale and then just kind of glaze over it, I tend to have to do a lot more layers before I'm happy with it. I'm just going in here with a harder brush just to kind of get that stuff in there. Where there's more shadow, and just right off the bat in spots to kind of emphasize where in my original drawing I have those spots, because I don't want to keep drawing with my sketch layer on. It's just very distracting. I made these pants so light that I'm not sure how much I will be highlighting. I had to make them quite a bit darker as I work here. Kinda need this to go out a little bit further here. And this to be more. If something doesn't look right in clothes and stuff, check your direction of where you're kind of pulling your fabric from, where the pulls in the fabric would be. So like often in arms, you'll see, because your arm goes like round this way, so people will put a line here and then a line here, and then they'll usually choose often they'll choose this line to emphasize. And that's not where the fabric's going to pull. The fabric's going to pull from your shoulder. So your lines will usually be coming out from that area, and it will extend all the way down the full sleeve. So you just gotta kind of be aware of that stuff while you're working. Because I think a lot of people, when they'll start out learning to draw kind of like figure drawing with people unclothed, right? So when you go to paint someone who's clothed, sometimes it goes against your kind of instincts of where you would regularly put the shadows. You probably don't get that as much if you've been kind of trained by painting still lifes and stuff like that, and having people actually sit for portraiture and stuff. Probably get away from those problems, but if you're like me who mostly does compositions from your head, and you have it, and just if it's just not that big of an interest to you, but you still want to kind of have those techniques and skills, you can just practice that way, or you just kind of got to learn on your own that just be very observant and stuff around you and the way stuff actually folds and moves. A lot of those, like, you can just sit there and put in the reps, but if you were like me, you had no interest in drawing that kind of stuff, and you just found it too boring, like you need a more exciting subject matter to get you kind of passionate and keep you involved in the piece you're working on, then yeah, you just got to be really observant. I did find also, that's another thing photography kind of helped with, was when you're lighting scenes, kind of getting stuff to look the way you want it to, figuring out how light works. And if you know that kind of stuff, it will help a lot with a lot of those problems that come up. I just put in like a longer kind of fold there. Yeah, so just be consistent on where your folds are coming from. See, if I had all these folds going this way here, I couldn't all of a sudden just put a fold going that way, right? Just, even just that, just being consistent. You can have incorrect anatomy, you can have incorrect stuff like that, and it still look good. Some people made a total career of that. There's some more artists that kind of work in a more cartoony style, which I somewhat do. And they're very successful doing stuff like that, so. But even them, eventually you see them start to tighten up and usually end up with a little bit more consistency with stuff like that. But like I say all the time, realism for me is not the goal. It's the feeling that you're invoking in the person looking at the picture. Sometimes, like you'll see in like portraiture, sometimes some of the best portraiture doesn't exactly look entirely like photorealistic to the person, but it gets the vibe of the person correct, and that's usually when your portraiture is really on point and working good. So not really entirely enjoying what I'm doing here with the pants, but it's getting there. Sometimes you can just in a couple strokes get it, clothing down, and then other times it can be a struggle. I'm kind of fighting myself a little bit on this one. So I'm thinking like, well, how much of this is under his body? Because that part would be more in shade than the rest. But how much of that? Is it just his heel kind of poking out the back there, or is this flaring out? It's gonna cast more of a shadow down here, or all those kind of things I'm thinking of while working on this stuff. I am just gonna darken that out a little bit more. I'll just sharpen up some of that there. Go in there with some sharper, softer, harder brushes to break up some of that softness I got going on there. Some people who do concept art, you'll see them be able to do these amazing depictions with very little lines. It's pretty amazing what some people can do with a very sketchy painting. Not me. Not yet, at least. Wanted to try putting in some highlight there. Just on the spots that I think light would be kind of hitting it stronger. And soften it up in spots, keep it hard and kind of sketchy in others. I'm thinking also with this coat kind of coming up here, kind of went too dark or too light in this area. I'm just gonna kind of circle that kind of area where I think it should be more in shade with the selection tool. You can grab a bigger brush here, grab kind of the darker tool and just kind of go over it, and then there we get a nice kind of little shadow coming across the leg there. Little tricks like that really kind of speed things up too. Alright, so I'm really liking him at this point, starting to get him more to where I want him. that. I'm just kind of thinking like that's kind of behind, so that would be clear of kind of the body shadow coming across it. So I'm just making that highlight kind of on that side there as well. Alright, let's... Now this, I kind of like how I went up into there, but it's too light. That's better. Alright, so he's looking pretty good at this point, and I think that's probably where I'm going to leave it for this one. Well, thank you very much for watching. This has been Inkpot, and we're drawing the Wendigo, and let me just put on the sketch layer here again. Pump that not contrast, jeez, the opacity up there, and give you guys a full look at the scene. So this is kind of where we got to today. So he's looking pretty good. And that's going to be our full scene when it's all complete. All right, well, like I said, thank you very much for being here with me today, and I hope to see you in the next one, and stay creative.